imagine that you can actually remember what you read. And here I'm not talking about some short-term knowledge, like for example, studying for a test and then as soon as you do the test, you forget all about it. No, here I'm talking about knowledge that stays for years. So my name is Andrea Poneri, and in this video I will walk you through my 3-step technique that makes me able to recall things I've learned years ago. So you want an example. Let's take, for example, the book I read, I think 2 years ago, Atomic Habits. And what I can remember of the book is that to create good and new habits, you want to make them visible, you want to make them attractive, you want to make them easy and very satisfying. And to break old and bad habits or habits in general, you want to actually make the opposite. So you want to make them invisible, you want to make them unattractive, you want to make them very hard and unsatisfying, even punishing. Then there are other principles of the book that I can remember. So for example, that most people try to change their behavior and hope that it becomes a habit and that those habits actually change their identity. But the author of Atomic Habits actually suggests to do the opposite. So to change your identity, then to act accordingly. So creating habits that that type of person would do. And those habits will automatically influence and dictate what you do during your day. And I remember many other things about the book, but this is not a book summary, so I won't talk about them. So you want to know how I did, and I will tell you exactly how to do it in a minute. So I will not talk about those obvious things that you probably already know, such as sleeping well, staying hydrated, having a good diet, physical activity, being in a positive mood while you learn, and things like that. Not because I don't think that they are useful, on the contrary, I know that they are fundamental, so go and fix those things first, or at least at the same time. But I know that you probably already know those things, so I don't want to talk about things you probably already know. So let's come to my 3-step technique. The first thing you actually want to do when you want to remember something is to actually have a reason why you want to remember it. So if you're reading a book, you actually should have a reason why you are reading that book. So you should only read books that you feel passionate about at the moment, that contain information that you literally need in that specific moment. And so what will actually happen is that you will be much more focused because you will actually want to learn those things. So the first step basically is to choose a topic or choose what you're learning based on what you want to learn at the moment. The second step is to actually filter what you want to remember. And this step is greatly connected with the 80-20 rule. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's not a problem. Basically, 20% of what you will learn will be responsible for 80% of the outcomes. So you want to wisely choose the 20%. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be learning all the details in a book, all the examples and things like that. And you don't even need to. You don't even need to. You just have to know the key principles. And from the key principles, you can actually derive all the other things. So you have to focus on the key principles. And by doing that, you will actually see that you will be able to remember more because you will actually understand those key principles better, and you will actually be able to use them on your day-to-day life, which is the goal, because you don't want to just read for feeling productive. No, we are here to read, to learn, and to improve. Because most people think that knowledge is power, but I don't fully agree. In my eyes, knowledge is only potential power. And if knowledge is backed by action, then it becomes power. The third step, and this is actually the most important step, is to actually act as much as possible on the newly acquired knowledge. So now we have a reason why we want to learn the principles of a book, and we are much more focused because of that. And we also know that we just want to learn the key principles, the most important ideas of the book, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing you need. And in order to learn those key principles, you want to act on them as much as possible. And this idea is greatly shown by the learning pyramid. So, what this learning pyramid states is that you remember about 5% of what you're being told, 10% of what you just read, 20% of an audiovisual process, which could be reading while listening to an audiobook, 30% of a demonstration, 50% of a group discussion in which you're obviously part in, and 75% of what you practice by doing, and up to 90% of what you teach others. So the basic idea behind this learning pyramid is that you actually want to act on the knowledge you want to acquire as much as possible. So let's take, for example, the Atomic Habits. What did I actually do? So as soon as I finished the book, I actually made a very detailed analysis of all my habits, and I tried to use the knowledge that I had acquired to create new habits and break old ones. Then, some weeks afterwards, I actually had the opportunity to make a presentation at school about a thing I was kind of an expert of. And I know that I wasn't quite of an expert about creating habits and habits in general, but I probably was much more of an expert than my classmates were, and so I made a presentation about it. So I had actually to summarize 320 pages in just 5 minutes of presentation. And for that, I had to kind of rethink about all the principles and filter all the most important things out. And so that's the reason why I can remember them years afterwards. So what do you actually want to do in the third step is, while you're reading, when you identify an important principle, you want to close the book and you want to try to recall it. So you want to try to see if you actually have understood it. And you also want to write it down in your own words. The next thing you want to do, as soon as you've written it down, is to actually think about how you could actually implement it in your day-to-day life. So for example, when I was reading Atomic Habits, I was thinking about how to make the habits I wanted to create or to do easier or more visible or more satisfying and more attractive. And then you actually want to implement it. So as we have learned from the learning pyramid, you actually remember 75% of the things you practice by doing. So you want to act on it as much as possible. And if you have the opportunity to do so, the best would be to teach the things you have learned to a person. So for example, if you know that a friend of yours is also interested about a book that you're reading, you could tell him that you will make a presentation for him about the book and that you will explain him how to do it. That would be great. That would be a win-win situation in which you win because you will be able to remember what you have learned, and your friend wins because he learns the key principles of a book without having to read it. So now you know my 3-step formula to remembering things I learned. Years afterwards, I learned them. And remember, you want to have a reason why you learn the things that you want to learn. You actually have to choose what you want to learn. So the key principles, you want to filter all the other things out and only want to remember the most important things. and then you want to act on the newly acquired informations as much as possible. And I know this may sound kind of simple and easy, but try it out, and I'm sure you will be amazed about the results. So I hope this video was of as great value as it could be for you. And if it was, consider subscribing and liking in order to not miss on future videos like this one, and to give to other people like you the opportunity to benefit from this knowledge. I wish you a great day, bro, and see you in the next video. Pew!